No. Let me run this real quick.
We're live. Hurry up. Guys, you ready? We'll call the Williams County Board of County Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, June 6th, 2023 to order. Beth, roll call, please.
Barry?
Here.
Steve?
Here.
Bo?
Here.
David?
Here.
We have a quorum. We'll proceed. If everybody would please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, consent agenda. What are the wishes?
Motion to approve as presented, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Barry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Bo?
Yes.
David?
Yes. Yes.
Motion carried. Just a technical difficulty. I know that's not a surprise. Okay, first into old business. Mr. Tavish and FX Solutions going to give us an update. Go ahead.
Thanks for putting us on the agenda, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity. Well, the last thing that keeps resonating in my mind, and I hear it about 2 o'clock when I wake up in the morning, is Commissioner Montgomery saying, look, we have a lot of promises, and we want to see some, finish work on this and see if you guys can carry this stuff through. I'm happy to say that we've gone quite a ways down the road on that Atlas project. From 24-hour security, we got everybody sign in, and it's professional. People come on board. They're onboarded. They're signed in. If they're not welcome, they're run off on both ends from the east or the west. With regard to a lot of the building, we've had a lot of procurement issues. I've been in contact with Mr. Heimer with Williams County. I keep him updated weekly. So it's everything that we're doing, everything we're moving forward with, whether it's dirt, fencing, everything that's happened in procurement, he's on board. We have a pretty good synergy working between the state electrical board and Williams County, the building department, so everybody kind of knows. Mr. Jagger with the state electrical board, he's on site literally every week now, giving us updates on what he thinks needs to be done and not done. I think the threshold there, if we're not able to complete because of procurement, any temporary certificate of occupancy that we're seeking, Mr. Heimer has indicated that he wants to make sure that the state electrical board signs off on that. I think we're through pretty much all of the buildings now with fans. The material that I was really worried about was the flashing kits for the buildings. That was a big safety issue, closing those in. We received it on the 29th of May. So it's going to be a stretch putting it up. Kiger with Three Forks Services is heading up all the installation of the fans. His company also sourced some of the fan supports, and instead of going with one source, we sourced about 3 different companies to build those fan supports, which is a big deal because the fan supports essentially make up the walls of the building, and then the tin closes the building, and there you have the safety factor that we were looking for. So with regard to everything moving along, I think we're probably ahead of schedule considering. Yeah, by next Friday, we should be complete with, everything building-wise and move on to some inspections from the state electrical board. Procurement objectives, all the fans are there. Like I say, we received everything on May 29th. The security and the fence has been one of the hot spots. I was fortunate enough to go to a town hall meeting on the 25th, organized by Jay Heller at the Judson Township, and it was a pretty good turnout. We had a lot of people there. I informed them we're trying to do the best thing that we can. The noise, to me right now, the construction and meeting the objectives of what needs to be done on site, I'm comfortable with, but I've been uneasy with the noise. I mean, we've been out there and it's gotten to the point where you can't use your phone. Everybody's got a phone, everybody's got a dB meter. It was time to bring somebody in that was, really one of the leaders in the United States, if not one of the best in the United States for noise mitigation. And I'll let Heidi Gill introduce her company, Urban Solutions, to you guys. However, a lot of thought has gone into it. Kiger and I have looked at fencing. We've looked at flare gas, flare pit walls to put up temporarily. We just didn't want to put a temporary solution up that was going to not work or make something, have the show effect of it and not have it actually do something. Fencing with soundproofing slats, was $850,000 to surround the property. The money wasn't as much of an issue as, is it going to work or is it not going to work? How do we build the berm? Is the berm going to work or not work? It came down to a point where I contacted Lindsay Appland and Heidi got involved. She's the CEO of the company. And I think you guys are going to be pretty impressed with the resume of this company. They've got roots in this community as well. And I think it's going to be a good mitigation for what we're trying to accomplish with the sound. And I think the commission's going to be happy with it. And I think I'll let that speak for themselves. We're on schedule. I think we're going to make our promises. And let's just hope everything goes the way it's supposed to go. And I put my best foot forward on this, guys. I mean, we've been living it day and night. We've taken control of a lot of the aspects of this. And I think you guys are going to be happy to hear. So I want to shift it to Heidi and her company because I think that's one of the biggest things, especially Commissioner Anderson. I remember when you dressed me down on the noise and people living there, and I got it pretty good when I went out to the meeting. But the meeting went well in the residence. Everybody was happy when I left. We were shaking hands, and I think they believed I was sincere in trying to do the best thing possible for that community. Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce Heidi Gill with Urban Solutions.
Hello? All right, can you guys hear me okay? I'm Heidi Gill, founder and CEO of Urban Solution Group. Thanks for letting us come here today and talk with you a little bit about what it is that we do. So what we're going to do is give you an overview of our company, talk with you a little bit about our expertise and how it's applicable here. And then what we want to do is we want to go into some of our process and the data that's used at industrial locations across the country, and then propose potentially a short-term and a long-term plan for how we see this situation could get resolved, and then available for any questions, of course, that you guys have. Also, if you have questions throughout the presentation, just chime in. We're a small, intimate group here right now, so please just ask. So I founded Urban in 2017. We were predominantly an oil field service company. Before founding Urban, I worked for Anadarko Petroleum, which at the time was the largest oil and gas operator in the state of Colorado, and now is owned by Occidental Petroleum. And at Anadarko, my entire job was to build their mitigation program for noise and nuisance, light, odor, dust, all nuisance impacts for drilling, completions, production, and midstream. Prior to doing that team, I also helped build their operational stakeholder relations team. So don't think PR, think we are here, we're fracking, 500 feet from someone's home. How do we make this operation compatible with the community? So urban operations is not anything new in my career and also our company. And so it was about in 2015, 2016, we started getting, in Colorado, we have the most stringent noise regulations in the country. And at Anadarko, we obviously had lots of resources to be able to go out and find the best. And really, I just felt like there was a large lack of companies that were just committed to how do we focus on this compatibility piece between allowing business in America that can continue to operate in communities, but in a way that's sustainable. So that's when in 2017, I finally said, okay, I have an idea for a new type of mitigation. I'm going to go out and start Urban. So started urban 2017. Fast forward now, we're probably on 25 to 30 oil and gas locations just in Colorado. We do processing plants. We do now renewables, battery storage, data centers, crypto locations throughout the country. I'm very proud to say that my best vendors at Anadarko now work at Urban. So went out and took the best people that I could find at the time. And they are our VP of engineering, and then Lindsay Applin's our general manager. This is Malcolm Hall. He's our operations manager. He actually lived in North Dakota and worked here for 5 years for Weatherford. So the team really does specialize a lot in oil and gas and also data centers specifically. We patented a new type of sound wall, and this is a temporary wall that goes around drilling and hydraulic fracturing locations. They can be up for anywhere from a couple months to a few years, depending on how many wells we're drilling. And then they work great in situations like data centers or production facilities or things like that. So really, we are known throughout the country as being experts in this space, and a really large focus on noise, engineering, modeling, and monitoring. The other thing that we do is we build, so we're going to talk about how this product is good for a temporary solution. If it's the next, 6, because if we're going to have to manufacture mitigation, it can obviously take some time. But our team actually can custom design mitigation, and we have done it for data centers specifically. We have a really large, our company prides ourselves on making technical decisions through a social lens. So in our mind, if you don't account for the community just as much as you accounted for the noise and the impacts, that's usually a project that we'd say, hey, we can do better. We can come in and we can really help. This is a great example here of where, engagement and getting that feedback from the community is going to be critical for what is ultimately, hopefully, success. We have a really large software that helps with mapping and quantifying that human emotion. I'm not going to talk about it too much right now, but that's something that we do and we're doing throughout the country. So our primary business units, if you will, if you think about it, we do, the noise modeling and monitoring. Then we do temporary and permanent mitigation design that helps attenuate noise or light or dust. And then we help with stakeholder engagement and grievance management. I won't go into this too much, but in those different business units, we now hold the patent on what is considered the most effective, safest product in the country for mitigating noise attenuation from drilling hydraulic fracturing locations, and now, we're doing quite a bit more work in data centers. These were all designed by structural engineers. We really look at operational feasibility, especially with a data center. You can't just go up and put a wall near the facility. You have recirculation issues. It's very similar to a compressor, and our engineers specialize in all of that. And then we believe in everything being third party. So when we even come out and say, hey, this is structurally safe, we get it from a third party. Same thing, I think that's what with Rick and FX Solutions, having it to where it's like they're acquiring third-party data, I think is critical in these situations. Noise modeling and monitoring, I'm going to talk about how we flew in a ton of equipment last night, and our team's been out there since yesterday. What we're accomplishing in the next 48 hours would usually take us 3 weeks from an operational, engineering, data acquisition standpoint. And then I even had the chance to meet with some of the community members yesterday. All of that data streams into the software that we've talked about, that we were talking about. We are currently patenting that software specifically for noise attenuation within communities. So this is kind of our fundamental thought process for how industrial operations near communities should work. And I should say, it's very rare if we're in at the very front of the project. Usually, once we're probably working with 10 different local governments or municipalities across the country that have similar projects where there is challenges with the existence of humans near the operation. So usually we work with that company one time, and then eventually they bring us into the process, so up front we can really help with that planning. Rick has already mentioned other projects that they have where they're like, we just want you guys there in the beginning now. We're at where we're at here, so we have a ton of experience of coming in and trying to figure out, okay, we can't do anything about the past, but what can we do about the future? So part of it is a combination of doing proactive engineering work, and that even is from not just how do we mitigate it, we're like, how do we get you quieter fans, because there are solutions and technologies out there to do this. Colorado is a great example. The opposition for the oil and gas industry there is huge, and we've been able to get regulations in place that are clear, where operators are getting permits and they are approving drilling under what is now a very different regime in terms of the political environment there, of what they would like to see probably. We're really big on the community portion, like we said, and it's taking that feedback and not just listening to it. You make operational changes that help improve the impact of that facility to those homes. And then it's not just about that it's built and hey, it's done. It's how are you going to manage it throughout the life of that facility while it is in these people's backyards. So that's what we really focus on, is how do we make it sustainable long term. So I'm going to do just a quick overview. I'm not sure if you guys have had anybody come in here and talk about noise. I think, you know, when Rick told us about the fence on the perimeter, I was like, you might as well just light your money on fire. Unless you actually look at what are the frequencies that are coming out of that facility, you have no idea if it's going to work. So you just can do engineering. It's out there. It happens all the time. We do it on hundreds of locations, and then you get the right product. So that's the height, it's the density, it's the material. That's how you do it really effectively, is by having data-driven decisions. So different services that we're going to be looking at deploying there that I'm going to go over right now are an equipment signature, a noise impact assessment, and then some continuous monitoring. So an equipment signature, what this is essentially where our engineers go in with sound monitors. These are really expensive monitors. They have to be calibrated frequently, and those have to be calibrated to certain ISO and international standards, so they can hold up Supreme Court style in terms of how the data was collected. The measurements are taken up close of every single piece of noise sources on the location, and then those collectively are put into predictive models. There's different softwares that do that. We own all three that are the leaders in the country, and we do it through all three of them to make sure it's accurate. So then what you do is you take that equipment signature, which is basically the output of the noise from the facility, and it's also the output of the noise from the facility collectively, and you make what's called a noise impact assessment. And what you do is, you can see here where you see receptors, those are stakeholders' homes. So we look at how is the noise impacting the individual residents that live near the facility. And so the noise impact assessments are really helpful as it pertains to modeling what should it look like, and then how do you mitigate it. This is a little bit more granular, but even inside of the facility, we don't even say, okay, collectively, you have to do this mitigation. We break it down and say, here are the 11 steps that we're going to build to mitigate. And you can see, as those are installed, you can see what the reductions are at these specific homes in question. This allows us to make sure that we understand each home and the impact that that home is going through, and then how we're going to mitigate it. So this is an example. This is from our software, but this is not the Atlas Sender specifically, but this is what our team is building. So you can see you have a location there, and say the red mark is the noise target and or a compliance point. So that would be an unmitigated facility. So that's just how the facility is today. Then what you do is you say, okay, utilizing these types of technologies, we're going to reduce the noise impact and bring that red line to where that green line is. So we run these for every single oil and gas location that is permitted in Colorado, and this is starting to happen throughout the country. You know, we're near hundreds of homes when we operate. We have to do one of these for every single phase of operation for very, very stringent noise regulations, and then we have to prove compliance throughout the entire operation. This is not something that's new for us, but this is the approach that we will be taking in Atlas, where essentially we are going to look at where is the facility at now and where does it need to go. Then we have continuous noise monitoring. So this is a picture of it. It's exactly like it sounds. It continuously monitors noise. And they have solar panels out there that help continue to run them. And so we yesterday were able to get permission from a few residents to deploy these on their property specifically. Rick and I were able to go meet with some of the families and talk with them. We even had a family that had 3 kids, and I was like, these kids are going to come touch it, so let's do show and tell. So we brought the kids out. They got to look at the monitor. They're going to check on it for us every day, but we are going to be leaving those monitors here to continue to monitor the noise at the facility. So half of our team is here, and half of our team is currently at the plant collecting hundreds of data points, close in with the equipment, and then also deploying these around the community at the property lines and in some cases where we can get permission on people's homes. And that data will stream to us, and so all of our engineers in Denver and in Canada will be able to continually see it, and if we see anomalies, we're gonna learn a lot about the facility. So for our mitigation services, so this is a picture of the sound wall that we patented. At Anadarko, I managed all my competitors, and a large frustration was, how do we get a better product out there? So to start Urban, I raised quite a bit of money, and some of our investors actually live here and have roots in this town. And we went out and we really built kind of a first of its kind sound wall. And we're known as a leader in this, and this wall, like I said, is a great short-term solution where we have hundreds of examples of reducing the noise substantially while we figure out what needs to happen on the inside of the facility. Technically, so I believe for your guys' code, wind speeds I think are like 105 or 104 miles an hour. Our product is wind loaded up to 110 miles an hour for our panels, and then our patented connections are 135 miles per hour. We see pretty intense weather in Colorado and wind. Since it started, we have never had a failure since company inception. We were at dinner last night, and some people were like, oh, I've seen those things around, and they fall over. Ours don't. So they were specifically, we spent probably 4 times the amount of money to manufacture these here in America with certified welders. And since company inception, again, there's a reason why we do all of Occidental's mitigation or all the other majors in the basin and throughout the country. It has an acoustic material in it that specifically helps mitigate frequencies that are impacting the community right now. We'll know a lot more after today in the next week or two when our engineers process that data. Again, all third-party structural engineer. We can install and remove it in about half the time it takes our competitors, which reduces the impact to the community. So it sounds like the community is already very fatigued on this. It's not where we say, hey, we have to come build this and it's gonna take 2 months. By the time our team mobilizes here, we have some crews that we work with in North Dakota as well. By the time that we mobilize out here, that wall can be out here and installed within probably a week. So we have to look at operational feasibility and setbacks from the power lines and things like that. But that's what we're doing currently right now. So this is a video that is not used for this purpose usually. We actually make people usually sign NDAs before we show this. But I thought it just is a good example for you guys to understand what it would look like and what that operation actually is.
At Urban Solution Group, we innovate to bridge the gap between social compatibility and oil and gas development. With our patent-pending wall design, installing sound walls has never been safer, faster, or more efficient. Our walls and robust connections have been structurally engineered to provide increased mobility on location and improved safety during installation and demobilization. Not only is it safer, it's more efficient. Our walls can be installed and removed in half the time it takes our competitors. This shortens operations and minimizes the impact to nearby communities. Let us show you why our walls stand out above our competitors. Step 1. First, our structurally engineered design requires only 2 I-beams per 20 linear feet, as compared to 3 or 4 required for competitive products. This is less invasive and easier to reclaim after removal. Step 2. Next, the wall units are safely maneuvered into place using easily accessible fork pockets located on the bottom of each unit. Step 3. In less than a minute, the wall unit unfolds like an accordion to span 20 feet wide and 32 feet high. The extended unit is then centered against the 2 vertical I-beams. Step 4. The wall unit is then secured to the vertical beams with our patent-pending steel cable tieback assemblies. Step 5. Custom brackets are then installed and each wall unit is attached to the adjoining wall unit. These engineered connections eliminate gaps or breaks between panels and prohibit sound seepage. Finally, we repeat steps 1 through 6 until all the remaining wall units are connected to complete the sound wall at the site. Safer, stronger, smarter. Urban Solution Group, the next generation of sound walls.
So usually we don't share that because it has a lot about our design, but the product's now patented. And yes, so I figured it would be at least a good way for you guys to understand. When you come in, you say, hey, we're building a wall. People are like, that's what kind of wall? So we like to explain it. The other thing is that, at the Atlas Data Center, we're not going to have to encompass the entire thing. So part of it is we'll look at it and say, okay, where are the impacts coming from? Where's the berm going to be? Our engineers are evaluating the berm also for how effective that's going to be. So all of those considerations go into the placement of that. Oops.
At Urban Solution Group, we innovate to bridge the gap.
Oh, geez. Okay, so that was an example of temporary short-term. And again, temporary is not where it can only be up for a month. We have some locations in Colorado where they're drilling so many wells, they've been up for almost 2 years. We come out and do annual inspections on them and ensure, if we get wind levels above a certain amount, Malcolm and the entire team, our engineers have data and weather stations at all of these, and we look at the streaming data coming in, and if we need to, we go out and inspect. They've made it through some serious storms in Colorado, over 100-mile-an-hour winds, and we have never, since company inception, ever had any type of failure. But we do have a very stringent process for us to make sure that we can maintain them for as long as they need to be up. So the permanent mitigation solutions, these are what is really going to be a huge driving factor of getting the Atlas Data Center more compatible with the community. So that's a combination of sound walls, acoustic enclosures, inlet outlet silencers, fans, berms, all of those types of things. And additionally, a big thing that we have to look at is we have to make sure you can have the best mitigation design in the world, but if it makes it so the facility doesn't operate or function, that's a problem. So we look at all of the different operational considerations to make sure what we're building is safe, not just effective for noise. So now, this is kind of what I have been proposing to Rick as what we would see in these type of situations as a potential resolution plan for both the short term to get some immediate relief for the community, and then what's the long-term solution. So the short-term plan, after this, pending that this is the direction that the commission decides to go, Urban would immediately deploy that temporary product here. So Malcolm would help mobilize, and we would get that product here to begin installing that, and that would remain in place until there is until there's a permanent solution. We're collecting that full sound signature at the facility. Like I said, our engineers were out there yesterday, and they've been out there since dawn this morning, collecting everything that they need to be able to model and design a mitigation for this facility. We also deployed those continuous monitors that we talked about that we deployed last night at various property lines, and or if we could get permission on especially some of the homes that have voiced their large concerns, we deployed those. And then we're going to, once we have all this data, conduct the noise impact assessment to look at, okay, what is the output of the facility, and then how do we look at starting to design mitigation to fix it. So this is a very rough layout of kind of the proposed temporary solution. So we obviously know that the homes to the northwest and the west and the south have, voiced some concerns. So what we are looking at and what we'll be doing today, later on today when we walk the location, is looking at the placement of that. So you have the Atlas Data Center project boundary. And then you have where we're proposing the temporary sound wall, and then you can see to the south where that berm is located. Even when we look at the berm, our engineers are going to get with Rick and his team and say, we need this much height and this much density. Berms are actually one of the best ways to mitigate because it's just sheer mass. It can be very, very effective. So but we also help and make data-driven, educated decisions about how that berm should be constructed. Then the long-term plan. So using data, we'll be able to look at the noise impact assessment and we'll determine what permanent mitigation that needs to be. Again, if FX and Rick and his team had gone and put up that perimeter fence, even just from the rough data that our engineers saw last night, they were like, that would have done absolutely nothing. So it's so important that this is a data-driven decision to make sure that we can get the results that are actually going to be meaningful to the community. So once we ensure the mitigation is effective for the noise target that we need to hit in this area, we'll then, engage in all of the operational feasibility and maintenance considerations as we design that. Then operations would come out and they would install the permanent mitigation at the facility. Once that's done, we would remove the sound walls. And then after it's installed, we would then come in and we would do compliance verification to ensure that we got the desired results from the model and the work that we entered. The other thing is, we had a lot of conversation with Rick about this. Urban believes that even if you have the best technical plan, but you do not have a plan for the community, that is still not success in our eyes. Rick has, said that he and the FX team are completely committed to continual dialogue with the community. So he mentioned that they had the kind of, town meeting, if you will, or community meeting on May 25th. And so the temporary, commitment to those community members is that FX Solutions is going to continue to engage and update that community on a resolution process. We will be, instead of conducting just the noise impact assessment at the property lines, we're going to actually take that a step further and we're going to conduct it at the individual homes. Even though the regulation points to the property lines, we just think that's a better way for us to really assess the true impact that the people are experiencing. Then we are going to help assist FX in what we think is really a best-in-class way to continue to engage and capture the data and work with the families. Several of those families now have my cell phone number and Lindsay's cell phone number, and we're fully committed to continuing to communicate with them. We have a hotline that we're setting up for residents that they can always call. If there's ever a true emergency, we'd want them to go through, the true emergency channels. But we're committed to continuing to hear their feedback. And then we will be sending out a mailer to everybody in the area that updates them on decisions that are made of how we're going to try to rectify the situation, and then how they can get in contact with us throughout the planning process of the resolution. Then the ongoing commitment, once the community or once the facility is built and the mitigation is in place, is that communication needs to continue. It needs to not just stop, and I think that Rick has made it very clear that they are committed to that as well. So the ongoing communication should help with the life at the facility should other issues arise. That's all I have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I think it was pretty well covered, but do you have a question? All right. Commissioner Montgomery.
I do have a question for you and for Rick. I guess I'll start with Rick. Just wanted to know if Atlas is on board to fund this project in its entirety as to their recommendations.
Yes, they are. So I talked with Kevin Washington, the owner of the company, last night. Heidi actually talked to Kevin as well and briefed him on everything. We just went right to the source, and he was excited about it. I think he may be streaming online, watching the presentation, but it's a priority. I mean, it's a priority that has to be looked at. It's a pledge that I made to the community and a pledge that he has to make as well. So I think our conversation with him was clear. He understood it. He was excited about it and just wants to see how everything turns out and take a look at the engineering. But we're just in the process of formulating the bill and what it's going to cost, and that's going to have to be plugged into the budget of Atlas, above and on top of the normal budget that we're operating on right now.
Heidi, I guess hats off to you for what you're doing. What your presentation to me was pretty impressive. The only downfall is that good for you, it might be bad for others in the future, because if this works, there probably might be a lot more of them in North Dakota. But I guess my question to you is the product for the wall or project readily available? I mean, it's not something that we're gonna have to sit here and wait for 6 months because of delays in getting the products.
It's a great question. I do always say that by the time I show up to a project, no one's ever happy to see me, but I'm generally fun, so like I can eventually get there. So I'm sorry that you guys are in the position where you need our services. But you know, the truth is that the interface between communities and industrial development is becoming a challenge everywhere. And in Colorado, if we hadn't made these modifications, we wouldn't be able to be getting permits to continue to continue our business. So our product, just so you know, we own the fleet and we rent the fleet out to operators traditionally. Operators will sign up for a year, 2-year contracts just to ensure that they get that specific product. We have made calls and there is an operator that's willing to donate. I say donate. They're still going to pay for it, but they're willing to give that amount for this project specifically. So we would be able to mobilize down here in a week.
I was just gonna say, I'll be a little less eloquent.
Rick, if you can, there's people online, you gotta push the button on that one, or the one in the middle works without it.
I was a little less eloquent on my phone call. I said, I don't care where you need to get the product. Just get it and make sure we get it here. This is an emergency, so my hat's off to her with everything committed already. She ended up pulling off the footage and was able to get here, you know, in short order. So, yeah, I think to answer your question, Commissioner, like she said, within a week, we can be moving and have something up a lot quicker. Our fence procurement was out 3 weeks, you know, to 4 weeks, and then we would have to start putting it up and put the slats in it, and it's like Heidi said, it was ineffective, so.
So the temporary fence solution, I mean, you talked budget, so you gotta see the number. I mean, is the temporary fence going in like next week? Or you still have to finish all this stuff, give them a number, and then argue dollars back and forth?
No, I think it's a go. I mean, I don't think, as far as the noise, I think we're at an epidemic, a level of having to get something done with this noise. I mean, across the street to the west, it's just not a pretty picture. We've sat, you know, with both those families, we were there yesterday. It's something that we have to address immediately. And then with everything else, you know, the berm, we got to get with Three Forks and reconstruct. And I think the berm was submitted in the permit to the county. You guys looked at it on the plan, but that may change a little. We need to see how that's going to affect the plan. I'll get with Cameron and find out, you know, it's going to be different, it's going to be better, but it's probably going to be a little bit bigger depending on the makeup of it. But I don't think I don't think we really have a choice in this to sit. And like I told her, we're not going to argue about, you know, nickels and dimes or $100 bills at this point. I think it's something that this commission's faced with the phone calls you're getting, and hopefully you'll get less phone calls if we put this hotline in. But we're going to go ahead and, as fast as we can do this, we're going to do it. And if it's next week, we can accomplish it. That's what we're going to do.
Any other questions? Well, I appreciate the update. Thank you very much for taking the time putting that together. And I guess on the 20th, we'll revisit it and see where everything's at. But thank you.
Thank you guys for the time.
Okay, looks to me like we are at planning and zoning.
Good morning, Michelle Haugen with County Planning. The only one that we have today for you guys is LU-0017-23, which is Allison and Allie Parizek, who are requesting a conditional use permit within the agricultural zoning district to build a kennel to house their nonprofit, which is called the Stray Sanctuary. With their nonprofit, they temporarily house both dogs and cats while trying to either adopt them out or find them long-term shelters for them to be transferred to. The subject property is approximately plus or minus 80 acres. Door. Thought someone was
Okay,
screaming.
apparently we were calling in an elk.
Right. It is currently within the agricultural zoning district, and access to the property is off of 118th Avenue Northwest. Some of the things that came up during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting was that on their 501c3, it does list a Newtown address. They were originally based out of Newtown, but they have since built their home and are now fully running out of their home, their garage pretty much, right now. And the location of the building that they are wanting to construct to build this is going to be just north and to the west a little bit of where their home currently sits.
Okay, is the applicant present?
They are not.
Any questions? If there aren't any, what are the wishes, gentlemen?
I'd make a motion to follow planning and zoning's recommendation and the staff comments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call, Beth.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm assuming, now that we're into the department heads, the tax equalization is just on here to remind us that there's a Board of Equalization meeting at 10 a.m. So don't run off, please. Lindsay, I think you are up.
Good morning. The only thing I have for you today is the contracts or the agreements for the community grants. Included in your packet were the returned agreements I had received thus far from the grant recipients. And then they're listed whether it follows the basic terms of the program, which was that the dollars have to be expended by the end of the year, and it's on a reimbursable basis. There was only, of the ones you received in your packet, there was only one awardee that is requesting alternative terms, which we have done for previous grants before, in which it's a larger construction project for a smaller organization. They provide an invoice, we do the reimbursement, they do it, and then they provide the proof of payment, and that's within a week time frame. So we make sure that happens pretty quickly. So today, just seeking authorization for the chairman to sign these agreements, and then just looking ahead to the few that are left, if you want to go ahead and authorize them to sign the remaining agreements, barring any other extenuating circumstances. But those basic terms are what is approved as part of the program.
Okay, I would make a motion to approve the community grant cycle number 1 agreements that are in front of us, as well as authorize the chairman to sign, barring any need for it to come back to the commission.
Are there there's some that aren't on this list though, right?
Correct, yep, because the list is just what has been
So
provided.
we would want to, we've approved them.
Yes,
So I think what Lindsay want is to be able to sign those also when they come in.
I think we did.
That's what I
Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't hear so well from my left ear.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? Roll call before I hear something different, Beth.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thanks.
Thank you. Karen?
Morning. Okay, so the private law firms that are representing the county and the national opioid settlement involving against the opioid manufacturers, pharmacies, and distributors have reached out to the county, and they want the county's permission to join another lawsuit that actually against a company called McKinsey and Company. McKinsey and Company is supposedly is in the complaint. It's alleged that they're a consulting firm that worked with Purdue Pharma, which is one of the major manufacturers of opioids, in particular OxyContin, which is the brand name for oxycodone. And anyways, McKinsey and Company is alleged to have worked with Purdue Pharma to drive up the sales of opioids by using false and misleading claims and messaging, really. And so there's been a number of school districts, other political subdivisions, Native American tribes, and other private individuals have sort of a nationwide suit against McKinsey and Company that's actually being not sued, but litigated out of California. And so our attorneys that are representing us against Purdue and the other manufacturers and stuff have asked permission to join this lawsuit too. Back in October of last year, there was a joint statement that was filed with the court by the parties and said that McKinsey had possibly entered into a settlement with some of the school districts and the political subdivisions, but the terms of that agreement were supposed to be discussed by the court in settlement conference in December of 2022, but according to the court docket, there's no indication that that conference ever took place, and so we really don't know what the terms of that settlement is, and we really don't know if that settlement would affect political subdivisions like the county who would join afterwards, really. However, like I said, the private attorneys think the county should join it just in case there is a settlement and that we would be able to get funds from there.
And what do you think?
Well, to tell you the truth, it's like most of the states, McKinsey and Company has already actually settled with most of the states, including North Dakota, in close to $600 million settlement, really back in 2021. It sounds like there's a number of lawsuits that against McKinsey County, not McKinsey County, but McKinsey, McKinsey and Company, that they're probably going to be settling down the road too. So I guess it really wouldn't hurt. It doesn't cost us anything because attorney's fees would come out of the settlement thing, so it really wouldn't affect us. So to me, there's no harm in it really. So yeah. And yeah.
Okay,
Well,
and-
well, the state is already going to get some of theirs from their own settlement really, but currently, according to the court docket, the only other political subdivisions in North Dakota that have joined this lawsuit is the city of Fargo, the city of Grand Forks, who are represented by a private attorneys out of North Dakota, and then Cass County, which is actually represented by their state's attorney. So, yeah. But again, it really couldn't hurt. Not going to cost us anything.
Okay, what are the wishes?
I'd make a motion to go along with the lawsuit as Karen has presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Bo,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes. Motion
Super.
carried.
I appreciate that. I'll let them know.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did I miss any other department heads? No. Helen, looks like it's you.
Good morning. So you'll see in the open position report that was provided to you, we have 3 positions we're seeking approval to fill: heavy equipment operator, a patrol deputy, and a legal administrative assistant. Just a heads up, we had resignations. Actually, we had resignation for the patrol deputy. The heavy equipment operator position is one that Dennis has carried in the budget, but actually hasn't had filled for quite a while. And we've been advertising to fill one where he had a resignation. He's seen some interest in the position, and so may be able to get 2 filled out of the deal. The legal administrative assistant, if you remember, we added a position in the state's attorney's office called office administrator, and we weren't sure if we were going to fill all of the remaining positions or leave one open. And after looking at how they're going to transition some duties and just how the workload will play out as we transition through, we're going to fill what ends up to be an extra position. But we know that we have some retirements coming, and we'll likely work our way through that as those retirements happen. So it might not be forever, but at least for a little while. So permission to fill those 3 positions, please.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then, as you know, we are the host county for the North Star Human Service Zone. And I don't really know that we need to do this, but The director, president, whatever Aaron Burst is titled, of the North Dakota Association of Counties suggested that counties that are host counties that will be following the state compensation calendar for zone employees, as the legislature has asked us to do, might get permission from their commissions to deal with those employees' compensation plan off of their typical cycle. I think that our policies allow us to do that without the board's permission, but because we've been asked to have you make the motion, I guess I'm asking. So the motion would be something like authorize Williams County departments to follow the state's compensation calendar for zone employees.
I would make that motion.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Wonderful, thank you.
Seeing nothing else, we'll be back in this room at 10 o'clock for Board of Equalization meeting. Meeting's adjourned.